everybody. My name is Monica Lynn James, and today I'm here to teach you how to shade a sphere, which sounds pretty basic, but shading can be a very complicated thing, and it's a challenging skill for most beginning artists, and a really good foundation for those of you that want to go on and further develop your drawing and drafting skills. Shading and value is really important to making a drawing that really looks three-dimensional and really looks realistic, which is a big goal in many of our drawings. So today I'm actually going to be using charcoal, and I have my handy-dandy kit here with lots of different charcoal. Charcoal comes in many different forms. It comes in degrees from hard to soft. My personal favorite are charcoal pencils, which can be sharpened and resharpened again. I have some soft charcoal pencils, and I have some medium and hard. As I finish the drawing, you will see I'm going to move to one of my favorite materials, which is Conte. And Conte is very similar to charcoal, but it has a little bit of a binder in it, which makes it much harder, and it doesn't smudge as much. And we're going to be doing a lot of smudging today, and I have some tools for smudging. These are tortillions, and you can actually file them and clean them and reuse them again and again. But for those of you on a budget, I'll also be using paper towels to smudge the drawing, and you'll see me working with these materials. Okay, so let's get started. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is start by sketching out a sphere. I'm going to start with actually some vine charcoal, which is made usually from willow. Made from wood. Charcoal is basically burnt wood, people, okay? This material has been around since the Neanderthals. It was also the favorite material of the Italian Renaissance, which we all know and love. Those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you know, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael, okay? I'm sketching out here my pretend light source, okay? So the light, we're going to pretend that there's a light shining on this lovely sphere coming down here. And the light is going to create a really bright highlight here, and then the shadow will be along this side. And the sphere is also going to cast a little shadow here behind it, okay, a little cast shadow. And let's draw a nice little line behind that sphere. This is the pretend horizon line, or the edge of the table. Now, I love this vine charcoal, folks, because it's so soft, it just smudges away, okay? This is a great sketch material for charcoal. It's really, really soft. Now, before I begin to shade, I have to explain something to you. I'm going to be doing what's called cross contour marks, okay? I'm going to flip over here really quick and just kind of explain this. We're talking about cross contour, okay? These are marks that travel across the contour of an object. So let's pretend we have a cylinder here, okay? I'm going to do two different cylinders, all right? Now, one way of shading is, you know, I could just make some lines, or I could add some value to one side here, okay? And then I can smudge it. I always like to use a smudger, not my fingers. Your fingers leave a little bit of oil, and eventually you get this spot on your drawing that does not erase. Now, cross contour marks go across the contour of an object. So if I have this cylinder, you know, curving in this direction, I can add lines in this direction. Now, with this kind of charcoal, this doesn't really matter as much, because it's so soft, it just rubs away. But if you notice, there's still a little bit of lines there, of marks there. Charcoal always leaves a mark, okay? It's almost impossible to erase completely. But that's also why it's so beautiful for this type of shading. It really builds up a lovely surface and some mass and volume to your work. what Leonardo da Vinci used to call sfumato, or smoke. It's what made his drawings and artwork so incredible, was the soft middle tones and value. So because it does kind of leave a ghost of itself, we want those lines to be going in a direction that will add to the curvature of the form, to make that form feel round and three-dimensional, okay? So, as I get back to my sphere here, folks, I'm going to lay this out for you. I have a little system of doing this that works really, really well. And it comes from a beach ball, okay? And if you think about a beach ball, all right, we got those lines, those lovely little red and blue stripes, right? Okay? So this kind of creates a framework for me to start my cross contour shading, okay? If you notice, I'm staying away from the center here because this will be my brightest highlight. And again, those lines do not erase, so let's not put lines in the bright highlights, okay? Now these kind of sketchy lines here, I just switched over to my darker charcoal. I just left I don't need the vine charcoal anymore. I'm switching to my darker charcoal. Let's start to build the shading here. And one of the tricks to really great shading with charcoal is layers. Layers, layers, layers. So this is kind of a preliminary layer here. And let me remove the back so we don't have that underneath. There we go. Okay, got my handy dandy smudger. And if you notice, I did not do this, okay? I folded this so that I have a corner, and this will really act like a nice, sharp, precise material. Now I'm just going to smudge it. You got to put a little elbow grease on this and smudge this. And be careful where you're spreading the dark, okay? Don't spread the dark into the highlight area, but we want to get all this as soft as we can. So there we go. There we go. Now, I can't forget about my shadow. You see, already we're starting to get some illusion here. Now, with my shadow here on the floor, I'm switching directions, okay? I'm not curving. I want this to be flat like a table, all right? So there we go, flat, 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 just like a table, okay? And then we're going to smudge this too. It's all about smudging. Got my nice sharp corner here, and then we'll smudge this as well. And with this, I'm going to spread this out and make it really soft. Shadows are very soft. We don't want this to have a sharp edge. Don't worry about these. We'll come back. We're going to clean all this up as we work, okay? The trick to getting a really precise, sharp line with charcoal is to come back and erase, okay? So I'm actually working with 3 kinds of erasers. My personal favorite is a white plastic eraser, okay? It's white, it doesn't leave any smudges on the paper. The pink pearl is okay. Sometimes they kind of leave a pink smudge on the paper, and they're not as hard as the plastic. It's just a personal preference. All right. So I'm also going to erase a little bit out of my highlight area, okay? This is a kneaded eraser, and they're really good for picking up small amounts for soft erasing. And I'm erasing a little bit out of that center. I don't want that highlight to get dark on me, okay? Now I'm using a medium charcoal pencil. I went in this direction. Now I'm going to switch directions, okay? And I'm going to curve around this way, following the contour. And I'm not resting my hand, and my arm is actually lifted. If I rest my hand, I'm going to smudge the drawing. You can also turn your work so that you're never really resting your arm on your drawing. This is one reason why many people, and myself, if I wasn't doing the video, I'd be working up on an easel, and this would be elevated. It's a really great way to work. It helps you to see better. It's important to step back from your work frequently. So if you notice here, we're curving. This is almost like NASCAR, folks, going around. This is lap 1 here. But we're going to do a lot of laps around this sphere to get the sphere really soft and as photorealistic as we can. And as I get closer to the center, I'm lightening my pressure. I'm not pressing hard. I'm pressing super, super light. Super, super light. I'm adding more charcoal to the darker areas, less charcoal to the lighter areas. And when it comes to charcoal, less is more, okay? It spreads. Like icing on a cake. You put down a little bit and you spread it out, okay? So we do not want to approach this like this, okay? Unless I know the area needs to be jet black, all right? Otherwise, I start with a little and then I smudge and add some more. Let me add some more into my dark. This point here where the ball is casting a shadow is going to be the darkest part. Now, I forgot to mention something really, really important, okay? And that's the observation of reality. I can do this in my head because I've been doing this for many, many years. But when I was first starting out, I worked with a real object so that I could observe what was happening with light and shadow. And after years of studying that, you understand the physics of light. Yeah, light is physics. That's pretty neat. Art and science, huh? But yes, light travels in waves. It bounces off of things. It's how our eyes perceive color. So I would recommend to either Google an image of a sphere, and I'll attach some of those, or eggs. Eggs work great. You could sit an egg. Of course, an egg's not a sphere, it's an ellipse. You could sit an egg in front of you, or at your local art supply store. Sometimes they sell spheres that are made out of styrofoam. My sphere is starting to look a little bit wonky. Speaking of eggs, my sphere is looking a little bit egg-like. So I'm going to step back and check the shape of my sphere. Okay, yep, a little bit eggy. So I'm going to bring this out a little bit more. And see, even I have stepped back and look at my work from a distance to check for accuracy. Does it really look like a sphere, or is it starting to look like an egg? Okay. So now I'm going to build some darker shadows under here. This is where it's going to be the darkest, okay? The light on the opposite side of the object will be the dark shadow. And as I go into the middle tone, this is the middle, this is the dark, the middle, and the light, I'm using less lines, I'm using less pressure. This is now the third layer of charcoal that I am adding to the surface. And one of the common mistakes that students make is adding too much charcoal to the surface, and they miss the gradient, okay? A gradient is a gradual transition from light to dark. Let me give a quick demo over here of a gradient. Gradient, okay? Gradual, gradient, start with the same thing. Gradient, gradual, a gradient is a gradual transition from light to dark, okay? If you're having trouble with this sphere, take a break, and either on the same page or another page, try to make a little mini value scale. It's really easier to create a gradient in a straight line than trying to curve a gradient around a form. Okay? Drawing is really made up of a lot of hand skills. Okay? This is really dirty, so I'm just going to fold that over. Okay? And you really have to train your hand to work with your eye. You also have to train your eye to make very careful observations. Now that's a little too dark. This is where this lovely little kneaded eraser comes into hand. I can erase just a little with this little guy. Not too much, just a little. There we go. There we go. Fold that over again to a clean spot and give it another smudge. And then I can sharpen it up with my eraser. Okay, so you see the gradual transition from light to dark. That's what you're aiming for on your sphere, and really any object, whether it's a car or a narwhal or a face or nose or house, whatever it is. There it is with a gradual transition. As I'm smudging, I'm also trying to build up what Leonardo da Vinci called sfumato. It's Italian for smoke. And that's what happens in reality. We get these soft, soft transitions. When you look at someone's face, if you're trying to do a portrait, okay, you don't see lines like a cartoon. We see a soft, soft transitions, okay? So even though the charcoal leaves a little bit of a line, we eventually want to try to get rid of that, okay? And a really good way to create a sharp line with charcoal is not, you don't really make a sharp line the first time, folks. You come back with your eraser and erase, okay? Now I don't want a bright white spot there either, okay? I want soft edges on everything. So I'm reshaping my kneaded eraser. Almost looks like a platypus tail or something. Here we go. Reshaping that, and you can fold it over. Your kneaded eraser will get dirty. You're gonna knead it and fold it over, okay? And very lightly, light as a feather, light. I'm lightening these areas. See how much that lifted? Real light, real light. This is really fun. This is a lot of fun. Once you really get into it, it's a lot of fun. Put on some good music. Get your egg ready. Get your sphere ready. And once you get really good at shading, everything else opens up. Be able to create anything that looks realistic. A lot of people are scared of charcoal because it's something new, and most of us are used to our favorite handy-dandy pencil. I myself am a big fan of the clicky pencil. That's my drawing material of choice. I love clicky pencils. But charcoal is wonderful for shading. If I was doing this in pencil, I'd be here all day long. But already in just a few minutes, charcoal has created a lot of high contrast. It's looking really good. Now I'm going to switch to my Conte. This is my finishing touches here, folks. The Conte is going to get my darks really, really dark. And don't be afraid to erase, you know. Never be afraid of drawing. This is your happy place. You know, if you make a mistake, you erase or you start over. And the more you practice, the better you get. There we go. Nice, happy little shadow. Nice, happy little shadow. This is called what I like to call refinement. I am not going to put my darkest dark right on the edge here. There's going to be a little bit of light that bounces off of the table. That's called a reflected highlight, folks. All right. I don't have a sphere, but this is a white object, okay? And underneath its shadow is a little spot right next to the object that's actually super bright. That's the reflected highlight. You know, light does travel in waves and it bounces off of things. So it'll hit an object and bounce off of the table, okay? Of course, it all depends. You know, observation is really important. Drawing is seeing. You have to make very careful observations about what you're drawing. Look at your object. What is the shape of the shadow? And what is the value of the shadow? If we took our little value scale there and we took a look at that and we said, okay, if this is 0 and this is 10, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, what would the value be on an actual object? Okay, would that be a 0? Would that be a 3 or 4? Would that be a 9 under there? And then you duplicate what you're seeing on your paper. As you're first starting out, you're almost trying to make yourself into a human camera, which is doable if you practice enough. It all boils down to practice. The more you practice, the better you get. I always tell my students, the only thing between a good drawing and a great drawing is time. Right now, this is looking pretty good, okay? So if I want to make this really great, like really Michelangelo amazing, time. I just need to continue to spend more time. You've noticed, you know, the more I smudge it, the softer it gets, the more realistic it gets. Okay. I want you guys to give that a go. Feel free to share some of your pictures with me. Let me know if this was helpful, other things that you might need, and hopefully I'll be continuing to add some videos in the future. I'm actually going to work on this just a little bit more and refine it just a little bit further. I hope that you guys enjoyed that video. Hope to see you soon. Good luck.